Hello everyone. The PNM government is once again hacking away at the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. However, this time, the government's surreptitious attempts to diminish the central bank's independence by infiltrating its operations and scrutinizing confidential information about its employees, both past and present, is dangerous and crosses constitutional lines. What the government is proposing to do, according to one former central banker, is to launch the latest Semitic assault on the independence of the central bank. On Monday, June 10, 2019, the Minister of Finance will take steps to amend the Central Bank Act to allow the Minister of Finance to obtain from the central bank whatever employment-related information he thinks fit. The proposed amendment undermines the secrecy and confidentiality provisions of the central bank, a power given to the central bank in pursuit of its national economic and financial stability objectives. And it seeks instead to tilt the balance of power in favor of ministerial power. This is another dangerous attack on the central bank and on citizens who enjoy a constitutional right to privacy. Think about that. If tomorrow morning, when you got to work, your boss said to you, he or she has been mandated by the government to hand over all your employment history, from your application to performance appraisals and even medical records. You don't know, nor do you have any control over who sees this information once it leaves your company's possession. Think about that for a moment. What is also especially worrying about this move by the minister to impose his influence and control over an institution that acts independently for the greater good of the country is the sneaky manner in which his government brought this amendment and is rushing to get it passed in the parliament. Like a Trojan horse, the offending measure is hidden in Clause 9 of a seemingly harmless sounding piece of legislation titled The Miscellaneous Provisions, Tax Amnesty, Pensions, Freedom of Information, National Insurance, Central Bank and Non-Profit Organizations Bill 2019. Specifically, Clause 9 of the bill would amend Section 56 of the Central Bank Act to require the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago to disclose to the Minister of Finance such information pertaining to the human resources and organizational structure of the bank and such other employment-related information as the Minister may request. The Minister may request the following information from the Central Bank: the salary and other terms and conditions of employment of governors, directors, officers, and employees of the bank, the organizational structure of the bank, the number of current or former officers and employees of the bank, the number of filled or vacant positions in the organizational structure of the bank, or such other matters relating to the employment of staff as the minister thinks fit. What you must ask yourself as a citizen is, what would Minister Imbert, who is legally restricted to obtaining only information on banking and monetary policy matters from the central bank, now want information on the terms and conditions of who the central bank hired, the credentials of those persons, their salaries, performance appraisals, and even their medical records? What would Imbert do with this private, confidential, and sensitive information? I remind the public of the recent High Court ruling, which forced Minister Imbert to disclose correspondence which he sent to the director of the G24 Secretariat regarding my prospective employment as a senior advisor with that international organization. The High Court said the facts of this case are as exceptional as they are disturbing. The correspondence revealed that Minister Imbert intervened and interfered in the recruitment process to prevent me from assuming the prestigious position of senior advisor to the G24 Secretariat. This kind of political victimization and spite has become part of the PNM modus operandi. I also remind the public of Minister Imbert's 2017 disclosure of the private confidential information of a former CLICO policyholder, not only identifying the number of policies which the policyholder had with CLICO, but also the payments made to the policyholder after he accepted government's offer in 2012 to buy out his policy rights. Since September 2015, this PNM government has been slithering into the central bank, and now it wants to further trample on the institution and give power to a minister who has not put forward any convincing, credible explanation for these sinister maneuvers. This government's grab for power started with my unconstitutional removal as central bank governor, went on to Minister Imbert illegally raiding $2 billion locked away in the blocked account at the central bank to fund the government's burgeoning fiscal deficit, and to Imbert's egregious breach of the law when he obtained CLICO's valuation report on no man's land from the central bank and shared that report with his prime minister. It has continued with Minister Imbert apparently exceeding the legal limit on the central bank's overdraft, a situation which the senior permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance recently revealed as troubling at the Joint Select Committee of Parliament. Alongside this amendment to the Central Bank Act, the government also intends to amend the Freedom of Information Act without any public consultation, an action which the Sunday Express editorial says it takes Trinidad and Tobago back to the bad old days of authoritarian government when public officials believed that information in the state's possession belonged to them. The amendment to the Central Banks Act is due for debate in the House of Representatives on Monday, June 10th, when it should get summary passage via simple majority. This is an obscene manipulation of our parliament. It's almost sacrilegious. Minister Imbert is drunk on power, 4 years into his time, and these amendments cannot be allowed. I ask you to contact the minister via his social media accounts and voice your concerns. The government must withdraw Clause 9. I also ask, where the voices of Uric Bob, Terence Farrell, Jerry Hospitalis, Winston Dokaran, and Ewart Williams, all former governors and deputy governors of the central bank? At the moment when the central bank is under siege, this is the time for the current governor, Alvin Hille, to defend the institution which was handed to him on a silver platter. At the end of the day, this move isn't just about the central bank. If this government is allowed to make these changes to satisfy its own selfish political agenda, we would enter a dark age in our country, where we will all have less rights. We will have no choice but to live with draconian measures of tyranny and intimidation, which this PNM government will unleash on its citizens. Is that what you want?